My name is Elbert Big Man Howard, and I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, a native of Chattanooga, Tennessee, but a longtime resident of California, Northern California specifically. And I wound up in Northern California after military service, spending 4 years in the Air Force, and they decided to discharge me, or I decided I wanted to be discharged in California because I loved it here. I loved the people, and being a young man, I'm trying to find my way, and so I ventured into Oakland and started my, I guess, formal education, or what I wanted out of education, in Oakland at Merritt College. And
Can I ask you first just a little bit about your childhood? So you were born in Tennessee in what year?
1938.
And can you tell us a little bit about your family there and growing up in the South?
Yeah, well, growing up, I don't know if it was typical or not, but my father died. I never knew him. All I knew was my mother and aunts and cousins, and I think that I was pretty much raised up as an adolescent by women, the aunts, my mother's sisters, and then my cousins were, I guess you could say, my brothers and sisters, really. And I attended school and in high school and that sort of thing.
And all the schools were segregated schools at that
Yeah,
time?
right.
Yeah.
And I think long about 1954, they began to talk about integrating schools. And, I heard about that. And, I told myself I have no problem with going to school with white kids because I have my own set of friends and living in my own set of society. So I'm not up for that, but if it happens, it happens. But I had teachers who I thought were concerned about me, who tried to teach me things that I needed to know to survive in a hostile world. So, I had no problem about wanting to integrate anything like that. And I went through to the 11th grade. And my mother being a single parent and everything, I got to growing up and becoming an adult. I figured one of the best ways for me to help support her and to develop myself was to join the military, the Air Force, after conversing with a lot of my friends who'd been through basic training and all of that and come back, and I picked their brains as to what it was all about. And therefore I made my selection to choose the Air Force to go.
And what year was that you went?
That was when I joined, 1956.
Okay.
I think I went in.
So we're a few years after the Korean War, and
I missed that one.
Had you talked to other veterans who had been in that war or came back?
I had some relatives that had been to war and stuff like that, and they advised me to stay away from the Army. One thing.
Right. Why is that?
Because the Army was the catapult to going into combat and all that sort of thing. And what I could find out about the Air Force is like you go in, you go through your basic training and everything, and after that it was like a job. Mm-hmm. You went to work, you did what you were told, and you had 3 meals a day, a decent place to live, and you had freedom to explore the places that they sent you to. Mm-hmm. So I felt very fortunate to be sent to Europe, and I got to know Paris and Stockholm and Copenhagen. I went visit all those places and met different people. And to me, it was a revelation and eye-opening to meet people of other culture and realize that even though the people were Caucasian or white, if you want to give it a color, they were very different than the whites that I had a great fear of in the South that I grew up with. So that was a revelation and a learning experience. And to immerse myself and learn about their cultures, to learn how to drink wine and go to art museums and be taught stuff. And, that was a good part of maturing to me.
What about racial dynamics in the Air Force itself, and say in basic training, but then when you got to Europe also?
Well, it had its little nuances of, segregation, and and even in France, which is a different environment, you had blacks hanging together because, I don't know, our cultural similarities or whatever. And you got along with the whites, but again, when it comes to stuff like economics, when it comes to promotions and stuff like that, you were looked over, or screwed over, and so you just let it go by and enjoy yourself, and learn what you wanted to learn, and survive and to a great extent be happy without having to look over your shoulder all the time.
Now, did you go in thinking that you would make a career of it, or was this just a way out of where you were?
No, at the time, I thought it was kind of a way out to learn something different, and at the same time to support my mother through an allotment and stuff. So I knew that she got a check every month, and I had food and shelter and everything for myself. And, it was, I think, to me, it was a pretty good deal, I just had to put up with whatever I had to put up with. And it wasn't all that strenuous. Just abide by the rules and the routines and do what you were told. And as long as you were there in the camp or whatever, or when you got your free time, you had a chance to get out and explore and pretty much have a good time, Go to jazz clubs and converse with jazz musicians who had left the U.S. for the freedom of Europe to be able to practice their art and so forth. And, it became an adventure for me.
Now, did you already have a love for jazz when you went over, or did that develop in Europe?
Oh, I grew up, it was a process of development from listening to the spirituals to old-time blues to R&B when that came into focus, and when bebop come along. In my brain, it was a progression, right on up until today, look for the new sound and, adapt to it.
Okay. So you ended up, after Europe, going back to the United States in California, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I say, I was still in the service on the air base here in Northern California, excuse me, and used to go into town in Oakland, and that's where I met a lot of people. And, it was a very rich culture. You had blues and jazz and great soul food and friendly people. And they took me under their wings, so to speak, as a young trooper. and showed me around and stuff like that, and I enjoyed that. So when I got my discharge, I decided to take it here in Northern California and hang out in Oakland, and not really having any focus as to what I really wanted to do. I looked for a job, and at that time they were very hard to come by, pretty much as they are today. But I had a resource in educational benefits from the Air Force. So I decided to enter into City College in Oakland and draw on my GI Bill. It helped to sustain me, until I found some type of employment and all that. And in the meantime, I began to study Black history and stuff like that, and I didn't have any real academic ambitions, but I always thought that I wanted to be able to write, write, and express myself clearly. So I took some courses in writing and stuff like that in school to try to develop writing skills. Nothing professional, just my own. When I, wanted to convey something, to be able to do it. And
had Black history been part of your schooling at all in Tennessee?
No. No, at that time, it was not even thought of.
So this was new
Yeah,
material for you in some ways.
yeah. And at enrolling in Merritt College, I began to associate with other students who had, similar interests. And that's where I met Bobby Seale and Huey Newton. And we used to, after our classes, would have rap sessions and talk about these things and talk about ways of dealing with them. Because we had repression going on in Oakland, police repression, and people getting killed by cops every week. And we would kick around ways of dealing with that, try to figure out a different way of approaching it as opposed to the civil rights and the nonviolence and all that sort of stuff. Because we knew what that was about, but we were trying to develop a new approach. Something progressive and revolutionary, if you will. And so we, Bobby Seale said, I want you to meet Huey. And we were thinking of starting a new organization. And they started to develop the 10-point platform and program, which was the mandate, or if you will, that would differentiate us from other organizations, because they had other organizations that dealt with culture, Swahili camps and learning language and stuff like that. And we were more interested in trying to deal with combating the ills in the community on a progressive and revolutionary level.
So what were some of the issues at the base of the 10-point platform?
We want freedom. We want the power to determine our destiny, which was number one on the list. And we felt we were occupied by police forces, doing the bidding of the rich politicians. So we began to study things like the writings of Che Guevara and Mao Zedong, of course Malcolm X, and all the revolutionary people around the world. And we started to cherry pick some of their philosophies and ways of thinking and apply it to what we wanted to do. Because we fully realized that we were not in China, we were not in Cuba, and we couldn't emulate anything that those people did, but we had to come up with our own approach, utilizing what we could from these great people, you know. And that's where we got a lot of our philosophy from.
Could I ask you to tell me just a little bit more about young Bobby Seale and young Huey Newton? What they were like when you first met and started hanging out with these guys?
Well, with Bobby, I hung more with him than with Huey. Huey was always, you know, in and out, so to speak. But, you know, he was, to me, very knowledgeable because about the justice system, because he had been through it. And whenever I had a case or some problems with the police, I could usually go to Huey and say, you know, how should I approach this and go into court and stuff like that. So he knew, you know, how I should do that. And so I got some advice from him, but we never hung together except for having meetings as the organization began to come together and grow, you know. Saw more of him then, but Bobby, to me, had a great skill for organizing, you know, and he had great ideas. And at the time, early on, a lot of them seemed very far-fetched to me, but I've always been a listener and try to internalize what I'm hearing, you know, and put it in the locker for later references. But we would get together with other kids on campus, and we'd sit down and we would, you know, go back and forth about approaches and ways of solving problems and so forth. And in the meantime, Bobby said we're starting a new organization, and then they began to work on that 10-point platform and program. And Richard Aoki, who was an Asian who pretty much grew up after he got out of that damn camp that they put his family in, he began to live and associate with the other poor and oppressed people in Oakland. I mean, black people. So you know, he used to hang, and he worked with Bobby on that 10-point platform and program, and you know, it just started to come together. Our ideas and so forth, and we began to talk more and more with more and more people, and they said, yeah, well, you know, I can relate to these ideas and so forth. Well, what do we do next, you know? And it come together like pretty much like that.
Mm-hmm. Was there, I think, a particular incident with the police that sort of pushed you towards the group a little bit more? And yeah. Tell us about that.
Because as I said, I enjoyed going out to Oakland to the blues and jazz clubs and stuff. And one night I was out at a club, and Don Barksdale was the guy that ran the club, a black ex-basketball player. And I think it was Lou Rawls, when he was first coming on and getting popular, went out to see his show. And me and my date, and when it was over, we were leaving, and it was drizzling outside. So I told my date, wait here. I'm gonna go and get my vehicle, and I'll come back and pick you up right here in front of the club. So I pull up in front of the club, waiting for her to come out, and the cops come up and start writing tickets. Well, it wrote me a ticket, and I looked at behind me. They didn't write the guy behind me one, and the person ahead of me. And I took offense because I had a brand new red pickup truck. And I protested. I asked them, why the hell am I getting a ticket and you didn't write these other people in it? And they said something smart, and I said, well, fuck this, I'm taking off. So I got my truck and took off, and then here come the gang. Boxed me in and took me and my pickup to jail. So from then on, I say, well, I got to get involved with something that combats this kind of crap, and this is what Huey and Bobby are talking about. So, I went to court, and I asked Huey to advise me and stuff, and he went to court with me, and the judge says, well, something that offended me, something like, he's probably guilty, but I'm going to dismiss it. In the meantime, the cops are sitting there in the court laughing and shit, and I got, highly pissed off about that. Anyway, dismissed the case. So after that, I left, and I took to, very angry, and I took to driving around in my pickup where I had a rack put in the back of it, and I put a legal shotgun in the back of it. So I rode around, and I'd say, well, I'm as good as some of these rednecks that ride around like this, and if I'm ever confronted, I'm going to defend myself, period. Mm-hmm. So, luckily, nothing happened, and I didn't have to do that, but I continued to do that, and when as I joined the party, I continued to do that.
Mm-hmm. And you all had researched and were aware that it's perfectly legal, right?
Oh, yeah. And on the way to take Huey home after the court date, I asked him about the legalities of carrying a weapon in the car, and he schooled me on that. That's why, I was able to do that. I knew that it was perfectly legal, and it was a 12-gauge shotgun that I purchased. And, went from there. And,
so what were some of the first things that you all did?
In terms of what?
Of work that you did with the party, I think patrolling the police themselves, was that one of the things that you started to do?
Yeah, that happened a little bit later on, when we began to get more members, and we began to acquire more firearms and stuff, and once again, consulting with Huey, he knew the law because he studied law and stuff, and knew that we could do that legally. And so we began to do that at night on the weekends when we knew the cops were patrolling our community. And so we decided that we would get out and patrol them, and not to confront them necessarily and engage in any battle, but to teach people in the community that they had a right, they had rights, and we would advise people when they were stopped by the cops, we'd get out and observe the cops so-called performing their duty. And if we were on the scene, they would not abuse the people. They became more concerned with these young black people with guns. And so we advised people that being arrested to go ahead and take the arrest, don't resist, and we're going to follow you down to the courthouse and we're going to bail you out. And we did that. And people began to wonder, who are these guys? Why would they be doing that? And so as a result, they drop around to the Panther office to find out more about it. And we began to gain recruits, more people to join the party. That was building up the organization with people coming in. And, like I say, the attitude of many young people coming in was the emphasis on the Black Panther Party, that we would confront cops and be ready to deal with shootouts and so forth. But when they come in, we'd say, no, we're going to have a political education class. So it's on such and such a night. If we hadn't scheduled one, give us your phone number and we'll call you and tell you when we're going to hold it. And we began to teach them revolutionary principles and more about what we were about. And, it went from there, We weren't in the business of getting anybody killed at that point, but at the same time, we were determined to defend ourselves no matter what. And we were determined to get any of our members arrested. If they went to jail, we were going to do everything we could to get them out as quickly as possible. And so, of course, that pissed the authorities off too. But, if you're not creating animosity or hate, then you're not doing very much against the system or the people that propagate or the repression.
So for you personally, you alluded to this some, and you talked about the incident at the nightclub, but for you personally, what was driving, what did you want to change? What was animating your
everything?
Actions? Yeah.
I thought, I learned a lot from Bobby and stuff in terms of dealing with the ills of the community, like the Denzel Dowell incident in Richmond, where these people, I would say, taking notice of the Black Panther Party. So his family, Denzel Dowell's family, wasn't getting any answers from the authorities, and they were told that they were justified in shooting this kid in the back as he ran and tried to climb a fence. And his mother knew that and told us that he couldn't possibly jump a fence because he had some injury. And so we exposed that as a lie. And we had a demonstration in front of the Richmond courthouse to protest that. And at the same time, we developed, we talked about creating our own news media. This is one of the first things we did. We mimeographed a sheet off explaining what happened to Denzel Dowell and the lies that his family was told and so forth. And we took that in the Richmond community and we give it out. And we asked people to come to a rally. And did that. And we asked them, if you got a quarter, a dime, or something, you want to donate so that we can continue to produce information like this, fine. If not, it's yours anyway. We give it to you anyway. And so that was one of the first organized rallies that we had, And by the way, we were armed when we went to that rally. And that, of course, drew the attention of the police and all that. But, it was
Can I ask
part of the growing
right.
process.
Pause.
Big man, let me just get you. Your throat's getting a little dry again.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Could we bring one over here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, David, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
We're going.
Okay, and you said you were armed at that rally, so I wanted to ask if you could tell me just a little bit about the symbolic power of that, of the gun for you.
The symbolic power is that the people in the community saw that. And they saw that, we weren't rushed or put upon by the authorities because we were there ready to defend ourselves, and in essence, to defend the community if necessary. So we had, a demonstrated determination to do that, and the people saw that. And so that, once again, drew people to us. We began to get more requests for support, whatever, And, we, whenever we would call a rally, bunches and bunches of people would show up without fear and with enthusiasm. And was willing to help and help us in whatever endeavor we were getting into, like donations for this, that, and the other. We needed an office, and we had to pay, rent for an office to have a focus in the community where people could relate to, rather than, just a Roman group of young men with guns. So, and have a place for people to come if they wanted to join, to come and give us a small donation, what have you. So we were in the community. Yeah. We were visible in the community. So, it kind of started there,
Mm-hmm. And that first mimeograph sheet that you had at the at that rally, was that the birth of the Panther newspaper?
Yeah. Because Bobby Seale said something when we at the rally. He said, "We need our own organ. We need our own news facilities." So. We come up with like the thing we were going to mimeograph, and I did the text to it, and Bobby Seale did the graphics, drew the panther on it and all of that. And, we gave that out, and that was really the beginning of our news outlet. So.
And you were over the newspaper from the beginning, or did that develop?
Yeah. Somehow we were, all young and feeling our way, as I said. So I guess that's why, I had a little bit of thing, because I'd written a little quirks for different little radical publications in the community. And And Bobby, said, well, you can be our first editor. You can be the editor of the paper, and we're gonna do some progressive moves and develop this thing, and you can be the editor. And I would say, well, I don't know much about being an editor, but that fierce determination to do whatever was necessary. And I say, well, I'll do it. So it, started there. People write articles, and I would read them and do whatever changes in it I saw. I determined that it would be more readable and so forth when we printed it. So it kind of started there, And I said, well, okay, I'll do whatever is necessary, And, eventually Eldridge Cleaver got out of prison, and he was best-selling author with his book Soul on Ice, and they said, well, we're going to make Eldridge the editor. I said, fine, and he'll be the Minister of Information, and you be the Deputy Minister of Information. Whatever.
So you'd have the minister title?
Yeah,
up to that point,
first,
Minister of Information,
yeah.
And did that mean giving speeches as well, or things like that?
No, that came later. It just was dealing with, putting out information, public information to in the form of pamphlets or whatever, and we needed a steady stream of information going out. So I would write some articles, Bobby would write some articles, and other people, and we did what we thought was right to put out some cohesive information to the community, and but I never gave too much importance to a title. I just wanted to do the work. I just wanted to make, do something to stick a fucking fork in the system. So, went from there. Speeches came later as, more of the main speakers went to jail and all of that. Other people had to step up, and I never considered myself a public speaker or anything, but once again, that old hard-nosed determination said I was going to do whatever the hell it took to advance this vehicle we got going. So I took a shot at it, and turned out all right. So, so I keep doing it. The more you do it, the more coherent I guess I was. But that's the way that started.
I better break. Okay, we're back on.
Okay. So just before we leave the newspaper, how important do you think that paper was to the party, both in terms of keeping money coming in, but putting the message out, recruiting?
Yeah, it was vital. It was very important. It was vital because we were combating the Oakland Tribune and all the negative shit that they put out about us, and the San Francisco Chronicle, because they were just printed everything negative that they could. And so, we knew people in the community bought those papers and stuff, and we said, well, you know, we got to put out things that was the truth. When some incident goes down or some issues in the community, we're going to tell the truth about it, and we're going to put it out to the community. And it was very necessary, you know, and as the party grew, across the country, and our chapters and stuff began to develop, we were required that our chapters and branches send us information about incidents in their community that was concerning their community, and also pictures. And so they would send that stuff in to central headquarters in Oakland, and I would look at it, and I would, you know, I read it and edit it, make changes or whatever, and then we would print it in the newspaper, and then we would distribute that newspaper back out across the country so that people in the community could look at it and see something about what's happening to them in it. And so that's what made it more popular. And so we began to get, you know, demands weekly. And it also brought in revenue. You know, not a lot of money, because we would sell a paper for 25 cents, and the party members who didn't have any income would go out and sell that paper. They'd make 15 cents off of it, and 10 cents would go into reproduction of the paper, you know, and help fund, you know, activities of the party. So, you know, it's kind of way that that worked.
And it kept your party members going, too.
Yeah, and then people, you know, we'd go throughout the community, and I'm sure it happened all across the country. We would be in the beauty shops, barber shops, restaurants, wherever, and told people, here, you know, you should read this paper, and if you don't have a quarter, we're going to give it to you. You know, here, you need to read this. And so people began to expect that paper every week. They look for us. And, you know, that's how it developed. Well, over 250,000 copies printed every week. It entailed a lot of work that the party members would spend 24 hours a day putting it together until we got it out and took it to press. So, you know, it was definitely a vital part of the party's program.
And were you involved in going and laying it out and that, getting it printed and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Once again, it was a learning process for me, because I never laid out a paper, but we had people that had done it before. Mm-hmm. Some people very instrumental, like Emory Douglas, who knew how to lay out and definitely produce the artwork for that paper. So people loved that artwork, that he had something different every week, something different and relevant, so they could look at it and say, yeah, you know, I can relate to this. And so, you know, we learned, and many party members who had skills contributed. You know, they knew they'd come in and they'd stay up all night if necessary, laying out that paper, you know, getting it right. And we had trouble getting someone to print it, because the system told people, don't print that paper, it's anti-communist, anti-American, it's communist, whatever they told people. So we had a hard time finding somebody to print it for a while. And I went up to Berkeley and talked with Max Shear, was his name, who ran the Berkeley Bar, and told him that we were having problems getting our paper printed. And he said, well, we print our paper on some days of the week. So after that, bring your stuff up here and you can print it here. You can get it done. So that was a revolutionary step as far as we were concerned. And this was a little hippie guy in the community. And that was, not only helped us get our paper done, but it also provided a coalition and a solidarity with other groups of people, because we didn't have any phobia about him being a hippie or whatever, because he was a progressive guy in letting us deal with getting our paper out. And pretty soon, some of the big printers got wind of how much money was in it and how much we were making, so they opened up and let us do it. They didn't like it because the FBI told them not to do it. So, but they knew that we would get on them and print some negative shit about them if they didn't. So rather than fight that bad publicity and get pounced on by the government, they would allow us to do it because it was our, Fifth Amendment right or whatever. And, but, they would tell their people, don't help them do anything, And we would be in their office laying out our paper, but then we had people who understood where we were coming from, and a guy would come by and look at the desk we were working on, article, and say, well, he wouldn't let his boss see him do it, but he said, why don't you put that down there? Looks better. And, so that was progressive, And so eventually we began to loosen that up and was able to mass produce our paper. And we had massive distribution, and we had to fight the government because the government told the airlines that they should double charge us or do whatever to make it hard for us to ship our papers. So it was always some, hardship, but we overcome it. We were determined to go around it and stuff, and we were able to get that paper to people on a weekly basis, and it began to not only grow nationally, but we began to get people from Asia, from Japan, from the African nations wanted that paper, and so our distribution was really broadened, And, right today, I think if you found one somewhere, it would cost you over $100. But anyway, my friend Billy X got a collection.
Oh yeah, great collection. Yeah. You mentioned early on working on I just want to follow up on this, working on the 10-point program in Richard Aoki. What happened to him?
He went, in the beginning, he, as we began to develop the organization and begin to build solidarity with various groups, we, began to see we had a large Asian community in Oakland, large, Filipino community, as well as the, Mexican Americans and Latino community. So we, and things began to really develop. We told Richard, why don't you organize in the Asian community. So he began to go up to Berkeley and get involved with the Red Guard, I believe, was the organization up there. And he did a great job in organizing. He would report back to us what was going on and stuff. So that's where he spent most of his energy. That's where we wanted him and where we needed him. And so we had, of course, Puerto Rican community. We began to build solidarity with the Young Lords and, the American Indians movement, and created a great coalition of American oppressed people. And, of course, that raised the anger of the FBI and the established politicians, but it had to be done, and Richard, he was, an ally to the end. I could be somewhere and somebody asked me, can you get somebody from the party or ex-party member to come down and participate in this, that, and the other? And I'd pick up the phone and call Richard. And for me, he would always participate and comply, right up until his health started failing. We were friends. We participated in, different rallies and gatherings and so forth. And matter of fact, when he knew that he was not going to make it any longer, he sent me, or he gave me at a meeting we were at, he gave me a big pack of slides of different things and so forth. But he was a great member, a great ally, and a great guy. I love Richard. And some writer here a few years ago wrote something negative, calling him FBI informer or something, and I took the guy that's trying to sell books. But anyway, I took issue with that, and I wrote a blistering critique of it. And he finally decided he wasn't going to have any benefit from that, so he dropped it. Rosenfeld was his name. It's something that irritates him.
Quick pause.
What about looking at getting to go trip to Japan?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay. I'll have to count on you.
So, tell me when we're back.
We're back.
Okay. So, can we pick up again? When you were as editor of the paper, and then Eldridge came in. So, what did you to move on to focus on at that point? Your own journey in the party.
And I had a zillion things to do. So, we had other people step in, because Eldridge, he would write an article now and then, but he became a popular spokesman, and so he was always somewhere, doing this thing. And so I had people to come in and take the responsibility for the paper. I had other things to do because as many members started to get busted across the country and going to jail, and everything, and I was selected, if you will, to go and deal with that. So I began to crisscross the country, going to different penitentiaries and jails to see about party members, to see what their needs, if they had any needs, and also see what the legal situation was, and see how I could help with their legal defense, talk to lawyers and help lawyers and with things that they needed, and also talk to people in the particular community where these people were in jail, and begin to try to organize defense committees in the community to deal with getting that person out of jail. So I was quite busy with that for a long, long time, you know. That was, you know, my job for a long time. And I'd go from Denver to New Orleans, wherever, you know, where we had people locked up and stuff. And some of the big issues came up, and they were framing Bobby Seale and Erica and all those people in New Haven. I had to pick up and move to New Haven and work on those issues. You know, a lot of people wasn't public knowledge what I did, you know, in newspapers and all that stuff. And that was fine with me because I had my hands full dodging the authorities and sidestepping traps that they might be setting for me, and moving and doing what I needed to do.
Can I ask a little bit more about that particular period when the party was really being targeted, and there was a lot of pressure on you, and you said you had people incarcerated, obviously. So how are people dealing? How are you dealing with all of that?
Well, I like to think that I relied a great deal on people in the community, you know, because we had friends in different places, not a lot of friends that were, you know, public knowledge or anything like that. We had people that would, you know, contribute money for bail and things of this nature. And when I was if I was in a community and they needed more community support, I would engineer survival programs, if you would, help with free breakfast programs, help them set up free clothing programs in their community, and get people to contribute to those things. And as a result, it began to get community support behind these incarcerated party members, to try to get them out of jail and get them through the court system and get them free. So it entailed a lot of different things, you know.
Was that high stress times for you? Just trying to stay one step ahead of the feds and all of that?
No, of course, but I didn't bother about that, because in doing what I did, I always sidestepped the obvious bullshit that would get you busted. I didn't, leave myself open to any of the traps that they laid, you know. For instance, in New Haven, I got very little sleep because in the house I would stay at, they would telephone all night long, and with shit like I've got a cache of weapons, I got some dynamite and all this shit, and I never responded to it. Just hang up the telephone. because it was all entrapment, and you begin to know these things, and you just don't deal with them,
See, these would be people pretending to offer these things to the
Yeah.
party. And it was
Yeah. And I knew it was the FBI and who was people, I knew that, so I didn't accommodate any of it, and, I just hang up the phone or leave it off the hook, get a couple hours sleep, and get up and start strategizing on what needed to be done, who I needed to see, who I needed to talk to. It's a matter of endless meeting with people to explain crap and explain what our programs were and why they should support it and stuff like that, You just had to keep going. So.
So I wanted to ask you this question, since you were traveling around the country in this way, were there certain chapters of the party or certain places that most people don't know about that are sort of dear to you or are interested, or that you'd like people to know about, places where the Panther Party existed and did good work?
Well, I don't know. There are a lot of different situations, like down in Memphis, there was a group of young college kids that called themselves the Invaders. I think they picked it up from some TV program or something. But they were trying to do something in the community, And so, they heard about us and knew about us, and we got with them and started explaining our programs to them and things that suggested things that they should be doing and everything. And they got with that program, and we eventually inducted them instead of the Invaders, they became a chapter of the Black Panther Party. So it was a matter of communicating with people, and giving little advice where needed or whatever, and learning what their ambitions were, what they could contribute, and making suggestions and so on, so you're building, I guess you call it solidarity, and communicating with, like I said, the Latino community who were doing things in their community, and we forged solidarity with them, as well as the anti-war movement and all that. Just a matter of becoming involved with anything that was oppressing people, and they're damn about the consequences. Who cares, Go to jail, so you go to jail and you use that as an equipment tool. Because every time that I went to jail, I'm sitting on a bunk talking to people about the Black Panther Party, and explaining reasons, political reasons why they're sitting in jail. So when they got out of jail, they'd come around the Black Panther Party office. And, so you never quit, and we had people in prison, like George Jackson, who got murdered because he was an organizer of the prison system nationwide, still considered a hero by incarcerated prisoners around the country. And so we just never stopped. And that's why they wound up, they couldn't bribe us out, they couldn't get people to not support us and all that, so it came right down to outright assassination and killings to wipe us out, a whole campaign. But that was why, because we had diehard determination that we were going to do whatever it took to free our community and deal with the problems of oppression. You know, so you know, it was quite a phenomenon. You know, and some of the things that people don't know about it, don't talk about it. It's all these young people that come to the party. Some of them came with heavy issues from things that happened in their lives or didn't happen in their lives. And the Black Panther Party changed their perspective on things. We changed them. We had people come in that had been to jail, been to prison, they had major issues. And we politically educated them and taught and showed them how and why these things were happening. And as a result, they joined the party and the party's philosophy. And some of them went to prison and stayed in there 40 years. And they never lost their perspective about what the party was all about. And, you know, we took young people who didn't have anything to do but hang out and get into trouble, and we recruited them and taught them how to cook breakfast for children. They wanted a gun to go out and kill somebody. We said, no, 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 no. You come in, you go in there, them sisters in the kitchen, learn how to cook grits and eggs, and get up and go and serve breakfast to school children. You go out when you, during the middle of the day, you got nothing to do, you go out and try to get donations for these programs. Try to get people to donate clothing for our clothing program. We gave them something to do. And we changed their attitude, and people don't realize that some of these kids, you know, we prevented them from crawling through their windows in their houses and taking their shit. And instead of doing that, they had some progressive work to do, some things to benefit the community. So people don't, you know, don't realize they call it bunch of thugs and crooks and this and that and the other. But we changed people's attitude. We changed their agenda in life. People.
They had a lot of people had a lot of reasons to be angry, right?
Yeah.
So they would come with this anger.
Yeah. So we changed a lot of that. We channeled that into something beneficial to the community. And I think that was a major achievement, and people don't realize that, because we did not fill up the prisons with dope addicts and criminals. We didn't do that. You know, we saved a lot of them from that fate by giving them something to do, giving them a place to live. Providing food for them, and when the payoff for doing that was them going out into the community and doing stuff for people. You know, tell them, you know, you live in a community, go down the street and see a lady's grass need cut. Cut it, and don't take a dime for it. Don't take anything for it. Just tell them you see something come up, an initiative come up, where the Black Panther Party is supporting some program, go vote for it. That would be payment enough for us. So as a result, people begin to understand what we're about, and at the same time, it caused the authorities to hate us more. You know?
So why were you so threatening to them, do you think, to the powers that be?
Because we, first of all, exposed them. We can feed 250,000 children free food every single day to schools in session. Why can't the government do anything about it? Well, if we can test people for sickle cell anemia, which is a disease that they pretty much ignored, if we can establish free health clinics where people could go and be tested and engage in preventative medical care, why couldn't the government do it? You know, things like that, you know, is what caused them to hate us. So, you know, just on and on, all these survival programs, free education. We started liberation school when people threw up their hands because their kids, they say, couldn't be educated and gonna put out on the street and be candidate for going to jail or prison. We had liberation schools. We get them young and get them in and taught them relevant education, something that dealt with their reality. And they teaching them to read and stuff like that. And at the same time, recruiting people who had the skills to teach, who were fed up with the bureaucracy of the educational system, and would come in and help us with these liberation schools to teach these kids. And we had some great successes. We got some kids running around now who are very appreciative that they went to the Panther school. And so stuff like that, this government was very uncivilized about.
The most of the party was that you went, you answered a call to, or an invitation to come to Japan.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that arose and what that trip
Yeah,
was
well,
about?
at the period, during that period, there were massive student rebellions and protests, and along with the anti-war movement and so forth. So we had some Japanese students who got wind of the party and what we were about, and they wanted someone to come to Japan, you know, and they were very persistent and kept after us. So finally, leadership said, "Oh, big man, you going, and take Roberta with you," you know. And so we took that long flight to Japan. And
that's Roberta Alexander that you're referring to. Yeah.
yeah, and we, you know, got there not speaking the language or anything, and we hooked up with an English speaking person that was living in Japan who helped us a lot. But more than that, these people wanted us to speak to these student protesters, and I haven't seen so many people at a rally. You know, like I said, it was anti-war rally, railing against the Vietnamese war, and excuse me, and students over there, they had I guess a repressive system where you know, the younger people were trying to break out of that, and they were rebelling against you know, their historical culture, where you couldn't, you know, talk back to elders, and, you know, they had no say. And so they were breaking out. The students were closing down universities all over the place, and so we were, you know, introduced to some of the, I guess, more radical organizations and people, and they, you know, had us go around to different provinces and, meet people and attend these big gatherings and like that. And so, Roberta and I, we hung in there all at the same time being followed by the, I guess, Japanese version of the FBI. They were under the FBI's instructions to follow and, keep tabs on us, I guess, and we know that, but they weren't as slick as the Americans, We'd be walking down the street and they'd be following us, and I'd tell Roberta, let's make a quick stop, turn around, stop, turn around. And these guys would act like they weren't following us. It was comical, But we had some fun with that. And they followed us everywhere. And we went to a lot of different cities, and it was, an experience. But we hooked up with Japanese filmmaker. I never forget his name, Mr. Ogawa. He had a film company. He made, I guess, documentaries or whatever, and he sponsored us going to different places, and it was an experience. I don't know, I guess we spent a month there or more, and it was something else. And of course, we were in all the papers. I had no idea what they said, but our pictures were all over the place, and we were treated quite well, So when time come to leave, Roberta got to come home. But they told me, you're going directly to Sweden after that, so I didn't. They wanted me to go there and work with support committees that had developed. We had people that developed support committees in Denmark and Sweden, and so I went there and of course paid visits to Paris and went into Germany and spoke with a lot of GIs that were serving there who had our paper and who knew about us and wanted to hear about what was going on in the country and wanted to know about, the party and stuff like that. So, we went to one base, I forget where it was, but anyway, in the city, and the base commander, this army base, knew we were coming, and he blacked out the base. We were getting there in the evening at night, and these GIs had decided that they were going to host us or something, but the base commander cut out all the power, no lights at all. So I hear this thump, 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 as we were standing out on the street talking, and around the corner, here come this formation of GIs. And, they say, well, the base commander heard you were coming, and he caused a blackout. So if you don't mind coming, we'll go to this local village, and, we can sit down and talk, 'cause, we want to talk to you. And so we did that, and we went and talked most of the night. And they wanted to know what was going on in America and what the Black Panther Party was all about. You know, they got our paper and knew, you know, something about it. So they wanted to know more. So that was a really good experience, you know, to sit down. And of course, we talked about, you know, our feelings about the war and why they, you know, should rebel against it and shouldn't participate in it and so on, you know. So that was.
And how were they feeling about things?
Oh, they were, you know, they were in accordance with what they had picked up from the Black Panther Party, you know. As a matter of fact, they, you know, forming some kind of organization of their own, you know, in relation to that. And, of course, that didn't sit well with their commanding officers and so forth, but it was, you know, a great thing to see so far from home, you know. And, you know, black GI, we got no business fighting the Vietnamese. So it was good to talk to them. Yeah.
So you sort of served as this kind of an international ambassador for a little while, and then you headed back home?
Yeah, yeah. And I worked with those support committees, and they set up speaking engagements all over the place with schools and colleges and so forth. So, you know, I spoke a lot. The meetings of exchange and the money wasn't that great, but they, you know, they financed our travel and stuff while we were in that area and so forth. But we stayed pretty busy going around to these colleges and universities and so forth in Sweden and Denmark, and I think we went up to Finland, I believe. So they kept us pretty busy. And I know that at one point, Bobby Seale had got put in jail in New Haven. He'd been extradited to New Haven or whatever, but anyway, he was under the charge of murder of Alex Rackley, and they sent me a message, you need to come home right away, you know, because we need you once on the paper and also help, you know, organize and do something to save Bobby or whatever, you know. So I was very anxious to get back home when I got wind of that, you know. What the hell, you know. And I came back and I had to move to New Haven and start dealing with all of that, you know.
And were you there during that whole time that he and Erica were in prison? Yeah. So that was 14 months or 18 months?
Yeah. Yeah, so we, you know, dealt with a lot of people, had a lot of people come in for the support, you know, Daniel Berrigan and Dr. Spock and all people like that. We got to come to New Haven and had big rallies. I think I got a picture of some of it up there, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, we had to generate support and on a daily basis, and people of New Haven were frightened of that. They thought things were going to explode. We said stuff like, the sky's the limit. And nothing better not happen to Bobby Seale, or, you know, New Haven would be in ashes, rhetoric. scared the hell out of them people in New England, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you had people like Kingman Brewster at Yale. He said, you know, revolutionary can't get a fair trial up here or whatever. So, you know, the judge and courts went through their routine under pressure from the FBI and the local law enforcement who they ruled and so on. And then they thought that the best thing they could do was get rid of this charge, get rid of this, get it out of our nice, pristine New Haven community before something bad happened and get Yale burned down. Yeah. So I think that had a lot to do with the judge's decision to get rid of this case because he didn't want to be responsible for any mayhem that might come about, you know. And, man.
So after that, after New Haven, how much longer were you in the party?
Well, after the trial and everything, I was getting ready to come back to California and come home, and I get a telephone call, and there's some more crap. Attica had exploded, and the inmates had asked for the Panthers to come up and negotiate the peace or settlement or whatever of that. And they told me Bobby Seale is coming, so don't go nowhere. He'll be coming through. And we want you to go with him to Attica. So we went up to the prison and went through all of that and, you know, talked with attorneys up there were trying to do something, and the prison warden and those people were hopeful that we would be able to quell it and all of that. But as a result, Rockefeller wasn't having it. And one thing that could have saved that explosion was for him to just show up or say he was going to show up. And he, I guess he was getting ready for re-election or something. And he had a platform of being tough on crime, some crap like that. And so he refused to come, he refused to talk to the inmates or make any concessions. And he, you know, pretty much hung the situation out to dry. And a lot of people lost their lives without, you know, needlessly. Didn't have to happen. You know, so we were there, and I think after we went into the prison and listened to the inmates, the people that were occupying the yard and all of that, and I think Bobby told him, well, you know, I need to go and confer with Huey and the leadership of the party to see what we can do. And
you were able to go inside the prison during the occupation?
Yeah. And it was kind of disheartening thing to walk out on that yard, you know, and people were, you know, hey, big man, you know, big man. And, you know, a few days later, people were dead. You know, it's just shit to think a strong heart to deal with. But anyways, you know, kill all those people and to see how pitiful the families of the guards were before, you know, before we went in, when we were out there outside the prison, and these people begging, please do something, you know, because My loved one is in there, you know. And then when you go in there, you see these guards. The prisoners had made the guards change clothes with them, you know, and they're sitting out there in the yard in front of a fire, and they're looking, you know, defeated and scared. And, you know, you look at that shit and, you know, you kind of take that away with you. And then the next day, Rockefeller gave the order to take back the prison, and they just openly killed the people, like shooting chickens in a barrel or something, you know. It's all kinds of shit, man. And it was proven later on that the guards didn't kill anybody, and all these things that were propagated and put in the newspaper. So anyway.
So you were dealing with a lot of stuff. At
Yeah.
that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Wherever come up. You couldn't avoid it, you just dealt with it, you know. Try to keep your sanity and keep your goals in your mind, or what you wanted to do, what you needed to do, you know.
Is that starting to wear you out at that point, or you're able to find reserves, or start to think about moving on to something else?
Well, you know, that was always something. 69, you know, you never knew what to expect, and, you know, you get the call, and we go here, this, that, and the other. So you just, I don't know, there's something in my personality that just made me deal with it and get through it. You know, another devastating thing was I get a call from, you know, the uprising of COINTELPRO. We didn't know what it was called at that time, but anyway, I get a call from New Haven to go down to New York and send Sam Napier home. And they didn't say what the hell it was about, you know. I'd say, send Sam home, what are you talking about, you know? And then they finally broke down and told me Sam's been killed. So what's the matter when to kill the newspaper distribution manager for? He had nothing to do with any military arm or the party or anything. So I go down there, and we go by the office where it happened, where they killed him and set the office on fire, which was the Panther distribution center. They set it on fire, and someone was there, took us to a hotel where told us that there was some ladies and a group of children scared to death, because this here was the beginning. I didn't realize how strong this was, but between East Coast, West Coast. And this is what this shit was all about. And these ladies had these children, didn't know if someone was coming to kill them or what, you know. And so we went to this hotel where they were held up, and I told my two comrades that were with me, I said, well, you know, first order of business, you know, Sam is in the morgue, he's not going anywhere. The first thing we need to do is find a safe place for these women and these children. And so we made some calls and found a place that we could take them to that would be safe and all of that. And as soon as we stepped out of that hotel, here's the cops everywhere screaming, yelling like they do, guns drawn, you know. I backed up against a wall, and I was able to pull out my gun and drop it behind me, and they took us to jail. They didn't take us directly to jail. They put us in a paddy wagon, and this was about, 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and they drove us around until about 10 or 11 o'clock at night before they took us to jail to, I guess, to hold us until, I don't know what, until the lawyers stopped looking for us, I guess it was. I'm pretty sure it was. So we were out of touch. We couldn't call anybody, anything, and we wondered what the hell is going on. And finally, they took us and booked us into jail and into the Tombs, I guess it was. And it took us from a local precinct to the Tombs, and that's where they began, the process of, getting ready to charge us with something. But anyway, they had us in jail for a couple of days, and finally, attorney finally found out where we were, and came and told me, we had to appear before a judge, and we got a sympathetic assistant DA, African-American young lady, and she said, well, you sit tight for a day or so, a judge is going to be on the bench that I can talk to, and we can see about what we can do. And she knew that we were Panthers, And so in the meantime, William Consular had located us, and he came and told me that party leadership told him to get me out, and that I would deal with getting my comrades out and take care of that. So that's what they did. And, we finally went to a judge, and he said, well, told me, I'm going to dismiss the charges and let you go under one condition, that you leave New York and never come back. And I say, yeah, right, to myself. This motherfucker think he's Judge Roy Bean. He can he can post me out of town. So anyway, I said, okay. Went back up to New Haven and started back working, doing what I was doing. But anyway, those are some of the devastating things. In the meantime, I never did get to Sam, but Pauline, his wife, came down, and she claimed the body and made arrangements to get him back to California. Just all kinds of stuff, man. Unbelievable repression.
Okay.
And during that period, the East Coast, West Coast thing was escalating due to the press and so on. And somehow the New York Panthers thought it was, let's see, anyway, they thought it was that Sam had been killed by East Coast Panthers, So Robert Webb, who was actually from the West Coast, was working the East Coast, was shot in the head on the streets of New York as supposedly retaliation for Sam. So then the killing began, you know, and you know, devastating times. But, we loved Sam. There was nobody I ever met worked as hard as him, you know, because he took control of the distribution of that paper early on. And, you know, at any time I could say, Sam, how many papers we got going to New York? And he would rattle off the exact number, and he would tell me who had sent their money in, and you know, he was just a phenomenal guy. That seemed like he came out of nowhere with those skills, you know. And he had put together a dynamite crew to help him, his cadre, and he'd say stuff like, circulate to educate, get the papers out. Yeah, yeah. That was a great waste, killing him.
So after all of this and handling all this, what did you do next?
After I was able to finally come back from the East Coast, I pretty much worked out, I guess, out of central headquarters, and just began to work on programs. In the meantime, I had been selected by the president of Murray College to, as an ombudsman, they called it. But anyway, he put me in charge of a work-study program, and to be able to run the budget on that, had a budget that I had to work with on that, and so you know, I saw opportunity there to benefit the community. So I knew that out at the Santa Rita jail, they had a system where, in order to get out, a person would be eligible for parole, but you couldn't get out unless they had a job. And I say, well, that stinks. How are you going to get a job sitting in jail? And I talked to Dr. Young Park, who was the president and who had hired me, and I told him I would like to use some of the work-study funds to provide educational opportunities for some of these prisoners. And he said, well, you know, all right. I say, well, you know, I need somebody to help me with the adult authority to get them released. So he went with me to sit down with the California Adult Authority, and we put the perspective to them that we would take on these people on probation. We would enter them into the college and those that didn't have a high school diploma, we would get them into a work-study program and get them on a GED program. And those that had some high school, had finished high school, you know, if they wanted to pursue going to a four-year college, we could enter them into a program and they could work toward that. And so it was, you know, an offer they couldn't refuse. So we set that up, and I had parolees coming to the school and enrolling in classes, and they knew it was pretty much a Panther program because I was in charge of it. So I told them, you know, you got to abide by your educational requirements, and you're going to get a stipend every 2 weeks to help you live. And we also have a on-campus food program where we got food, meal tickets for you to eat twice, a breakfast and a lunch while you're on campus. And in the meantime, you pursue your studies, you keep up with your attendance, and if we need you to work, to help the library move something or move things around, you go and help with that, you know. That would be about the only type of labor that you would have to do. You just maintain a program. And so that worked pretty well for a while, you know. And what killed the program was we had an instructor. His name was Felix Pointer. I think his name was Felix Pointer. Yeah. And he was definitely a critic of the party, and he would say things in his classes critical of the party. And in the meantime, we had some Panthers in those classes. And one day it kind of exploded, and they jumped up and they knocked him on his ass in the classroom. So, you know, that was assault on a county employee, I guess you'd call it. So it got to Dr. Park, and Dr. Park told me, you know, I can't save you on this one. So, you know, that ended the program, but it was quite successful for quite a while, you know. So these are things that, you know, I thought that was beneficial to people in the community, and it would help these people that was in jail to come out and contribute a little bit to their families and have a viable program that took them somewhere, you know. So anyway, I did things like that, you know. Attended endless meetings dealing with endless programs, you know. I remember having to go to a meeting where all these people in different forms of disability, people, you know, room full of wheelchairs and stuff, and I'm wondering, what the hell is this? And you know, once again, something told me, keep your mouth shut and your ears open and you'll learn something. And so these people were protesting not being able to get their wheelchairs on sidewalks or get them into federal or county buildings where they had a right to go and stuff. And we talked, and eventually come down to, you know, threatening to go out into the street with these wheelchairs and stop traffic and show protest that way. And as a result, we got sidewalk cut so people had ramps. We got these ramps put on in city buildings, and people don't know that that was Panther involvement in that. But just things like that, and helping people organize rent strikes where they had paint on their walls and their housing, lead-based paint that make kids sick and stuff like that. And when we had to organize rent strikes and tell landlords if they didn't repaint these places and get rid of that stuff, that they wasn't going to get paid, you know. And so, you know, rent strikes caused some redevelopment there, and they painted, they redid, they complied with it, you know, but, you know, it took pressure to do it, you know. And so, you know, just trying to meet the needs of the communities, what it was all about, you know. And, you know, things of this nature.
So a tremendous amount of work and different programs.
Yeah, you know.
You did eventually decide to leave the party.
Yeah, well, that kind of happened due to some political differences, I guess you would call it, in that different things happened with Huey when I think Huey had a dislike for the organization as it were. And I never heard him say this, but he disbanded all the chapters across the country, and it was supposed to bring organizers all into Oakland under the guise of having these people work on the Bobby Seale for mayor campaign. And that was viable, but at the same time, I don't think he wanted to deal with the responsibility of a nationwide organization and all the things that needed, you know, had to be done. So in my opinion, he did a disservice to the people who had followed the Panther philosophy and had worked their tails off to develop programs, to gain resources to do that in their communities. And, you know, all of a sudden you tell them to close down the chapters. And the people in the community that benefited from what happened in those chapters. So that was one of my personal criticism of that move. And, you know, then of course people began to leave and all of that, and it got to a point, you know, even Bobby Seale left, and without any explanation as to why, but, you know, it was all, you know, a result due to ramifications of closing the party down, really, if you will. And it was just a top decision, rank and file, and people like myself had no say in it. And I say, well, you know, Bobby Seale left and didn't say goodbye, and, you know, it's over. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. And You know, I think it limped along a little while where people, out of their own self-aggrandizement, called party and called themselves the chairman or the new leadership or whatever. But Elaine Brown became the chairman. It was a gift from Huey. But other than that, it was nothing. There was no party. So the people that were last minute hangers on, who took advantage of what I guess financial resources that were left over or whatever, and using the party's name because it was out there to do whatever they wanted to do. I decided, you know, it's time to go. I fulfilled my mission, and you know, time to look for some other things and see if I have any other talents. And you know, a small group of people came to me and told me, you know, in confidence that, you know, party's over and other people have taken it over, and if you want to lead the party, we'll follow you, we'll back you. And I said, well, nope, you some of the best organizers in this country, so you know, you just get out of Oakland, go back to wherever you want, because you have the talent to do whatever you want, and I know that. And if you ever need me for anything, you know where to find me. And we did that, and I left. And you know, never looked back. Billy X kept after me for years to participate in reunions and stuff like that. In the meantime, I went into retail. I got a job without anybody knowing my background. I got a job with Kmart. Started as assistant manager, and
Back in the South?
worked for them for about 13 years.
You went back to the South?
Yeah. Yeah. Got sent to some little town in Virginia to train, and they move you around quite a bit, you know, wherever you're needed. And so I went through their training program and you know, became successful at that. And it afforded me doing a lot of things that I think that I had done as a Panther in terms of being a mentor to young people. Those people come in and they're working for Kmart for little or nothing, and they would have grievances against the supervisor and stuff like that. And, you know, and I have to pull them aside and say, look, you need a job, you need money. So just hang in there and don't fly off and do anything that will damage you. Keep this while you got it, because it's paying you something. And, you know, I'm going to do what I can to help you. And, you know, that was that. So, you know, developed, I think, some young people's character, and taught them how to do what was good for them and how to sidestep the snakes that were there to bite them, and like that. So, and I went from there. I think I got tired of the place that Kmart sent me. Yeah, Fayetteville, North Carolina, I think it was. I down there with all those crazy GIs. and I got a job with an outfit a retail outfit called Service Merchandise. And it had a different merchandising philosophy. It wasn't so much great big box stuff and dealing with a whole lot of little stuff. It was mostly a place where you go and buy gifts, you know. And I learned their system and went from I guess a trainee up until I got appointed store manager. Ran a couple of my own stores, you know. And I finally got to the point where they had different philosophy in their management and stuff like that. It was pretty much like what's going on now. You get up to management where you're making a nice buck or two, then they would fire you and use a lesser person to get the job done, and the person at the top would get the damn big bonus, the money that you used to make.
Right.
And so, you know, I gave that up, and there was time where I got close to being able to draw my Social Security, so I said, you know, I'm out of it. Anyway, Billy kept after me, and he finally had one of his reunions in Washington, D.C., and I was living in Maryland at the time. So I decided to attend, and all these old comrades, I thought you were dead, and stuff like that. So I began to realize, I guess somewhat that I had a legacy going or whatever. So I began to relate to that, and
you hadn't talked about the Panthers in
No.
years, right? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that. None of those people in retail that I worked with or anything, because I never would have got the job.
Did your children know? Did your family
No.
know?
Well, I guess my immediate family, no, I didn't tell them, because I had FBI agents go down and talk to my old aunt and try to figure out where I was and stuff like that. And she said, well, I don't know. And they kept on, and then I was in some store in Virginia, and a couple of suits came up, called me, can we talk to you outside? We don't want to jeopardize your job or anything. And then they handed me a packet. And it was something from the Freedom of Information Act from Washington, and there was a whole lot of shit that they had accumulated on me, and took a black magic marker and marked out anything that I could sue their ass for. So I'll keep this for my archive.
Right.
And, you know, but then I had a kid too in 1980, daughter. And, you know, I kept myself under wraps from her because I knew that the government had no shame. They would fuck with her to get to me if they, you know, could. So she didn't know anything about that until she was, I guess, 16 or 17 or something, and that's when I finally relented and went to one of the reunions that Billy had kept after me to go to, and it was in Washington, D.C., and I was living in Maryland at the time, so easy place, easy to get to and stuff. And that's when I went, and all these people, I didn't know what happened here. I thought you were dead, and so forth. And I said, well, I'm here. And, from then on, my daughter got up to an age where, none of this stuff would affect her. Mm-hmm. Then I began to let her know about that, and send her stuff, old stories and things like that, and so nobody could harm her for anything that I'd done. So, that's kind of the way that went.
If I could just ask, what it's been like now that you are telling your story, and what you want to accomplish with it, what kind of feedback you're getting from people.
Oh, I'm getting a tremendous amount of feedback because, everywhere you go, the legacy follows you pretty much. And you get in the habit of dealing with people and trying to address some of the same issues that you were addressing before, that somehow me, anyway, I can't help but become involved, So I came back to California after I had moved around the South for a while and stuff, and I reconnected with Carol, who was, a nurse. I've been a nurse for years and years, and anyway, I had developed, I didn't know what it was, but some physical ailments, and it turned out to be prostate cancer. So here in California, I got the best treatment for that I could get. And, but anyways, I didn't think up here there was any kind of political repression, but I found out very differently. You had a combination of state troopers, county sheriffs, and local police forces that were killing people. And people were all up in arms about what to do about it. So, naturally I had to get involved in it. And so we had big meetings and stuff like that, and people were, just really at the wit's end as to what to do about that. And then we also had the immigration problem with the ICE cops and stuff. And so we began to get together with these people and try to iron out something that we could do. And so we had a big meeting and held some workshops and so forth. So out of the workshop that I held, we came up with the idea of creating a helpline for people who had no recourse when they were abused by the cops and so forth. And we called it PATS, the Police Accountability Clinic and Helpline. And we established like a 24-hour telephone line where people can call and make a report. And we would take that report and put it on the database. And at some point, people wanted to file suit against police or whatever, we could go to that database and provide that information for them to take to court or whatever. And so that's still going. And so, there's always, and there's issues that come up that, to me, you can't ignore. Like, really upsetting is they killed 13-year-old Andy Lopez. Cops shot him in the back. He was walking in his own neighborhood in the middle of the day, not bothering anybody, and he had a toy weapon that this cop that shot him said it looked like an assault rifle. But you can tell how a kid carries a heavy weapon as to a toy. And so they opened up with him, and all they did was shout at him. And before the words got out of their mouth, they opened up and shot him about 7 or 8 times and killed him. So that became a major issue and created, demonstrations and stuff. And the bad part about it is that sheriff's deputy was not indicted, and he was put back on the job, put back on the streets. And, so it seemed like it never ended. But since that happened, we had all these other killings, just endless names of, it's reverting back to what originally caused us to organize, and so I, get involved as much as I can with them, and criticize the DA and the county prosecutors and all those people, and give a voice to the people.
The fight continues. The struggle continues. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. So, I don't know, some of the people in the civil rights movement could quit and I guess get wealthy or get rich and find their peace and their heaven in that. But not me. I'm not so blessed.
You got to keep fighting. Yep. Well, we have to end there, I'm afraid. So let me just say thank you. Thank you for all of your work over the years. And
hope this horrible story.
No, talk about it. Well, it's an important story. So.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture.